Welcome, and it's good to be back at this point. And we're in the middle of Parshat Ekev, although we're going to start at the beginning of it. And so I'm going to set up the shared screen. Give me one moment to find it. So before let's start with a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
So I wanted to sort of reflect. I was reflecting on something that Lisa had mentioned before, and that is sort of having a routine, being able to have a routine, and just how much it gives you, a sense of a good feeling, a basic good feeling about the day when you can actually accomplish your routine. So this is part of that routine, and I hope that's part of the reason why you enjoy doing it, besides what I hope is the intellectual and emotional stimulation that it has. So, Lisa, I was thinking about what you had said, how you bracket the day and stuff like that. At any rate, you bet. We're going to start. So, Vahaya, and it shall be, right? It shall be, Ekev tishma'un et hamishpatim. If you hearken, if you listen, if you process the ordinances, right, the laws, ha'ele, these laws. I'll finish the sentence. There is something unusual. Read immediately in the sentence. I'll tell you in a second. Ushmartem, and you shall guard them. V'asitem otam, and you shall perform them. V'shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha. So this is one of the major sort of principles of Deuteronomy, which is this agreement that God has with us, that if we perform the commandments, God is going to bless us. That is a primary principle of the way Deuteronomy operates. So here we go. V'shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha. So you've got the Ushmartem, and you've got V'shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha. And the Lord your God will guard for you et habrit, the covenant, the agreement, right? The et hachesed, and the love, asher nishba la'avotecha, which he swore to your ancestors. So lots of stuff in the sentence in a way to unpack, but at any rate, the one that jumps out is this word Ekev, because there may be one or two other places where Ekev is used in this way, because normally you might have expected to say, Vahaya ki tishma'un, right? It shall be if, and this word Ekev, which is a synonym in this case for ki, means, of course, it means basically a heel, right? A heel, Yaakov, because he was grasping his brother's heel. And but here it means Ekev, and Rashi, of course, jumps with an interpretation of this. So let's take a look. V'haya Ekev tishma'un im ha-mitzvot hakalot, right? So he's saying that the Ekev is an implication regarding the easy mitzvahs, the mitzvahs that are easy to perform. Sha'adam dash be'ikvav. So he's saying that a person trods on with his heels. In other words, mitzvahs, and I'm sorry, I can't think of one right off the bat, but I would say, saying Shema at night before you go to bed. That's a mitzvah, right? Because it says, Uveshach b'cha. So that's an easy mitzvah. It's not a complicated one. So he's saying even these easy mitzvahs, if you follow tishma'un, if you listen to, and I think listen to, we know that the word Shema also has the connotation of understand, that it means you take them seriously. I think that's what it's talking about, right? We can certainly listen to things. It doesn't mean we really pay attention or we really give them any gravitas. And I think that's what it's saying, that if you understand that these are not, casual kinds of statements, but he's saying, even if you do the light ones, right? And what I love about this is that what it's saying is no one is expecting you to have to do every single mitzvah that there is in order to be able to be deserving of divine love. And that's what I understand here. And okay, Lisa, if you want to share that, I'm happy for you to do that. It's a lovely statement you made. Go ahead.
Okay. It's the line, God, mend thine every flaw, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. It's one of the lines I love about America the Beautiful, because there's this protection that I feel when I have guidance. And there's liberty within that framework of having, such as, the prayer service. There's a kind of a law or a flow to it, a truth to the form. And when we have that form that we can, because we're animals, and we have self-control. We are the ones that can actually choose to live within the laws of what works and what can be equal for all. Anyway, I will stop there, but you can actually, hear what I'm talking about. Thank you so much.
Of course. No, I totally agree. I preach a lot, as you know, that the real slavery is slavery to ourselves. That's, I think, really the message that the Torah is giving us, and that the freedom, even though it's cast in the story of Pharaoh in that way, it's really talking about ourselves and God's, helping us through the Torah, and as Jews, I would say, right, as Bnei Israel, to achieve liberty in this way. But it's a process, and I think that's what I hear in this word Ekev. That there's a moment, right? I love the term halachic consciousness, that you're conscious of something above and beyond us that actually is an ability to discover freedom, as you put so very well. And I don't know that a lot of people necessarily understand that. But that gives us the joy that I think accompanies this too. So here we go. I'm going to continue. Thank you. We're going to continue with Rashi's explanation, V'shamar Hashem, that Hashem will guard, right? And perhaps the word is observe, right? So Yishmor Lecha, he will preserve for you, Haftachto, his promise. So there's something, I think, there's a dance, in a way, a balance. On the one hand, we do have elements of, I think, grace, and my understanding of grace is it means undeserved divine love. But at the same time, we do have a measure of requiring to earn this divine love. And the fact is that since it isn't just a free gift, I think there's a sense of dignity, that we're not just accepting handouts, but that there's some sense, there's a very deep point being made here about finding significance as human beings, in that the Torah is saying that we can actually earn this, and that the Torah gives us a path by which to earn this. And it's not an all or nothing thing. The part that is the all is saying, I want to be able to make my life in sync with what the Torah is teaching, and at the same time understand that it's a lifelong process. And there's so many situations, etc., that make it non-linear, but one has to get into it. So let's go on here. Next verse. V'ahevcha uve'rachacha v'hirbecha. And he will love you, right? He'll love you. He will bless you, and he will multiply you. He will make you great. So generally in speaking, great here, though, means great in numbers. And to bless you means that you won't lack anything. This is my understanding of the essential meaning of the word bracha, is that you never have to miss anything, that you'll be amply provided with various things, whether they're physical or spiritual, whatever, but that you're not going to have the sense that comes along when you don't have enough of something that's essential. And, love you, I guess, is a sense of feeling close, God's nearness, and feeling that you are pleasing, that you're living your life in this kind of way to deserve that love. And more specifically here, uveirach pri vitnecha, he will bless the fruit of your womb, ufri admatecha, and the fruit of your soil, your land, degancha, your wheat, your corn, v'tiroshcha, your wine, v'yitzharecha, and your oil. And my sense is that, taking those three things, we could possibly, meditate on those various three things and say, why those specific things? I think they denote various categories of what makes life enjoyable, right? So, wheat, I think, would be like something that's a necessity, right? On the other hand, tirosh, wine, although tirosh, by the way, is the modern Hebrew word for grape juice, but something that gives us pleasure. And yitzhar, olive oil, right? We're talking about oil here. The kinds of things that oil provides, satisfaction perhaps. It also has to do with some necessities. One can certainly think about the nature of olive oil. But I think there must have been some reason why they picked out these particular things. So, going on, the verse continues. Shigar alafecha, the carving of your cattle, the ashtarot sonecha, and the lambing of your flocks. I obviously had to look up how to exactly translate these particular words. Rashi is going to comment on these words here. They are a little bit unusual. Al ha'adma, upon the land, asher nishbal avotecha, which he swore to your ancestors, latet lach, to give to you, right? It's not to give to them, but to give to you. Because Abraham never actually, he journeyed around. He lived essentially a nomadic life. Likewise, Isaac and Jacob. But the promise that God made to them was that their descendants would actually become inhabitants in this land. And of course, there's a sense of security in having a holding of some kind as part of a nation. So there's sort of lots of blessings involved here in this particular verse, and specific. It's not a generalized blessing. It's specific. Here we go. Shigar alafecha. So the reason why we use the word shigar for the offspring of cattle is valde. So he says vlade, meaning the offspring, bakarcha, of your cattle, bakar, shehanekeva, because the female mishageret mimeeha, casts out the calf from her innards, right, from her loins. So that there's, as far as I know, there's with cattle, with animals generally, there is not the pain of childbirth that has the labor pains that human beings have. I'm not saying they never have any pain. There may be circumstances where there is difficulty in giving birth, but the process of birth for animals appears to be less painful than it is for human beings. So that's, shigar means to cast out. Ashtarot sonecha, again, a word, right? The lambs of your flock. Menachem, so this was a teacher of Rashi's. He either studied with him or he left something, a document that Rashi had access to. Menachem Piresh, Menachem explains, and this is in his commentary on Psalms 22, Abirei Bashan. So there he talks about the strong ones, literally Abirei, right? The strong ones of Bashan. So he says, when he's talking about Abirei Bashan, that's what you find in Psalm 22. It says Mivchar Hatzon. He says it is the choicest of the flock. Kamo, so as we find Bereshit Yudalit in Genesis 14, Ashtarot Karnaim. There's a place called Ashtarot Karnaim. It's the name of a locale. Lashon Chozek. So he says there it is. The Ashtarot means the stronghold, right? Chazak, be strong. So Ashtarot Karnaim means either this. Karnaim would mean horns, so it may have to do with some kind of outcrop that was strategically a very strong location, a hard impenetrable of some kind. So that could have been why it was called Ashtarot Karnaim. So the Onkelos, however, Onkelos Tirgaim, he interprets the Edrei Anach, and the Edrei Anach means simply the flock of your sheep. So he understands Ashtarot as flock. The Rabotenu but our sages, Amru, they said, Lama Nikra Shmam Ashtarot. Why are they called Ashtarot? Why do we use this word? And they say it's a play on words. Shem Ashrot et Ba'alehem, because they enrich their owners. So obviously people measured wealth by their flocks, by the size of the flocks. So that's why they use the term Ashtarot in this verse, to emphasize the nature of the blessing. Going on, Baruch Tiyeh, you will be blessed, Mikol Ha'amim, above all the other nations, or among all the other nations. But generally, the word mi is partitive, it means from, as opposed to. So you will be blessed in an outstanding way compared to the other nations. Lo yevacha, there will not be among you akar v'akara, right? This is someone who's incapable of providing seed or giving birth, right? Uviv hemtecha, and amongst your cattle. In other words, you will have fertility. You will be blessed with fertility. I guess I could editorialize and say, if one is not blessed with it, I would not infer the opposite. Okay, I mean, life is complicated, but I think we need to understand this simply in a positive sense and not in a negative sense. I think there are simply lessons to be learned in all the adversity that comes our way. And I don't anticipate a life without any adversity at all. Adversity itself has, of course, I don't have to convince any of you that adversity itself is an amazing teacher and can give us a depth of understanding that nothing else can, at any rate.
Yeah, but historically,
yes,
people, even now, if you're not blessed, it's because you did something wrong.
Right. And I think
that's so ingrained in Christians. I mean, it's so ingrained in them that they can't get out of that and go beyond it.
Well, Golda, forgive me. I mean, I'm not going to make generalizations about other people. I think it's true amongst Jews. I think it's just true generally, unless they've been taught otherwise. Honestly,
Yep.
I
right.
think
we need to get past it is what it is yes. So what you said is perfect.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
Rabbi, I agree with you that it's not to be generalized, because as human beings living the human condition, we are all trained with that, and it's in our DNA. So it's really up to us to be able to wake up.
I agree. I think that's a good way of putting it too, Lisa. It's a wake-up call is what it is. Okay. But I mean, it's how we figure it out, how we learn, how we try to process that adversity, I think is so important. And simply seeing it as a punishment isn't helpful. I think seeing it as a punishment can either make us rebellious, frankly, or or lose heart or give up or stuff like that. But on the other hand, if we see adversity as actually being a message from the divine and as an opportunity to learn something, as you said, a wake-up call, I think that's helpful. And I think that, and because adversity is such a part of living, I mean, you talk to your friends, you live your life, and you see how no one is exempt from it. And it has more to do with how people process it. So the Rashi, thank you, all of you. Akar, so this is, he explains the word akar, she'eno molid, incapable of reproduction. He explains what the akar means. Let's go on here. So these, by the way, as I was working my way through Ekev, I don't know if you all do this anyway, but if you would read the English of the Sedras, especially Deuteronomy, as we're going through them, even though we can just sort of touch on only a few verses, I would say that it is inspiring. It really is. And in some ways, it's such a commentary on what's going on right now in the world. So I would very much want to encourage you all to, if you don't already do it, to at least read the English of this. My own practice is, because there's 7 aliyot, is to read an aliyah for each day. So on Sunday, I read the first aliyah, Monday, the second aliyah, and that way I get through all of it in the course of a week, because it can be somewhat overwhelming at times. And I was doing this for many years with reading a commentary along with that. And it's usually broken up into manageable sections. But just a thought if you want to give that a try. So, V'hesir Hashem mimcha kol choli, and Hashem will remove from you all illness. V'chol madvei Mitzrayim, and all the this is the pains. Davai is things that give you heartache and problems, and maybe I should just simply translate it as adversity, right? Mitzrayim of Egypt, Haraim, which were awful, right? These awful tribulations of Egypt, Asher Yadata, which you experienced, you saw. Lo Yasimem Bach, he will not put within you. Unetanam b'chol sonecha, but will place them amongst all your enemies. So this is, this is very black and white. And I think it's just stated that way, to give us a model which we then need to interpret. I certainly don't think this is supposed to make us feel self-righteous. I mean, that's a terrible place to be. But I think it's saying, Moses is trying to encourage the Jewish people, because I think the basic model indeed is true. I would have to look at my life, not to say that I'm any great model myself, but in the sense that I try to be conscious of these things, and I've tried to learn from my experiences, and it's tough. There are times when it's very tough, but I really feel that Deuteronomy has a legitimate point to be making. So let's go see if we have any. I don't know if there's Rashi on this. Let's see.
No Rashi on this or the next.
Okay, so let's do one more verse and then I'm going to stop. So here we go. It's a good place. It's a paragraph, right? V'achalta et kol ha'amim, you shall consume all the nations asher Hashem Elokecha noten lach, which the Lord your God is giving to you. Lo tachos einecha, you shall not, literally it means spare your eye, alehem, upon them. You shall show them no mercy. That's what it's saying. V'lo ta'avod et Elohem, so I think it's saying so that you not worship their gods, ki mokesh hu lach, for it is a snare to you. So clearly, this is one of those very difficult passages. At least I find it a difficult passage. I guess there are people who don't. It's hard for me to fall away from the idea that every single human being is created in the divine image. And the way I try to handle this is to say, this may have been true for the people who were living in Canaan at the time, in the land of Canaan at the time, that they had a divine mission, a divine commandment, etc. I do not extrapolate this to cover people now. I don't think it appeared. I don't think to think of non-Jewish people, the people who currently live in the land of Israel, to say that they are on the same level as these Canaanites and therefore can be treated in the same way, either generally or specifically, I think is evil. And I do understand this in its own context, and I think it has to be contextualized, and because I just think it's to apply it in another kind of way is just terrible. So I'm going to stop here and give you a few minutes then to comment. I think it does, obviously scream commentary. Let me put a little mark here. Here we are.
Is that the thinking in some parts of Israel?
I suspect it is. I don't know that it's necessarily that radicalized, but you listen to how people talk at times and the level of hatred and bigotry. I mean, sadly, you see it that people look for excuses to act in a cruel way, and people can be cruel. I'm going to stop the share. And yeah, I mean, I think it's tragic. I think it really is tragic. And, I try to understand, I think I can understand why it's stated the way it is in Deuteronomy. And the way it works in terms of, let's say, just, is that the Israelites are, in fact, as one sort of looks down the history, get treated in exactly the same way. In other words, if you're going to apply this measure and this rule, it's not going to be any different for the Jewish people themselves. So either one acts in a merciful way. I'm actually trying to work on a piece that involves the story with Saul and the Amalekites. I'm just saying that we know that in almost every single case, we have to find a context for what we're reading. And I think this also screams out the necessity to contextualize this and place it in a special place. It's not that it's totally wrong. It isn't totally wrong. But on the other, for example, justice, people need to be brought to justice. There are degrees in which to allow things to continue just makes things ultimately even worse. You ask yourself the question, had the Allies prior to World War II been able to look carefully at the whole situation of what was going on with the rise of Nazism and Hitler? Think to yourselves what might have happened had there been policies which had prevented that from happening. Look at all the millions of lives that could have been spared with a relatively, at the time, easy way, relatively. There were lots of factors. It wasn't simply Hitler. Okay, it's just that given what happened with that terrible, where the German currency became the inflation, the incredible inflation, etc., and the reasons for that. But even what's going on in this country now and what we're reading about, it's very concerning. So I will stop the recording, thank those who have been with us, and God willing, tomorrow